Hello and welcome back to Literally Heinous. We have a guest on today, my dad, Richard. Hi, Dad.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Of course.
My dad was actually my first guest on my podcast when we did an episode about Seinfeld. So that's Literally Heinous episode number 3.
Okay.
So this is your second time on. It's been about a year and a half. Like, catch us up. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. I'm enjoying all of your podcast and
Okay.
learning a lot about pop culture and whatnot, and love hearing some of your friends and guests on, and very proud of you.
Thank you, Dad. That's so sweet of you to say. So, my dad had the idea for this episode to talk about OJ Simpson. So, most of my friends, we weren't alive when the whole trial, or maybe I think I was alive during the trial, but not during like when it all went down. So, if you could just give us like your experience with OJ Simpson, because this was like obviously really big in your life, and like, what was it like? And do you still remember everything? And what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I remember everything. I read books on it and saw movies, documentaries. So, obviously, OJ, I'm trying to compare what it'd be like somebody now. Like OJ wouldn't be as big as somebody like Taylor Swift, but maybe like a Denzel Washington or almost a Michael Jordan type. I mean, a famous former athlete, not quite Michael Jordan, but somebody that was so incredibly recognizable on so many commercials like Shaquille O'Neal, somebody like that you would see all the time. Now, this is before social media, so if there's social media around, then even more people would see him. But he was incredibly memorable. He was on TV shows, some of the silly movies and commercials, and at one point, one of the most famous football players ever. So what I remember is, I guess waking up on Monday, I guess it would have been the 13th,
Of
which
what?
of June 13th, 1994, hearing that O.J. Simpson's ex-wife and a friend were murdered, and it was just shocking to hear that. You didn't immediately think, "Oh, it had to be O.J." You just wondered, "Gee, I wonder what happened." That's awful. I remember hearing something about his ex-wife, and maybe vaguely hearing there was something domestic years before, but didn't really make any connection to that.
So this was 94, right?
94, yeah,
Okay.
and trial was a year later. So actually, you weren't even born
I
during the
know.
trial.
So how long ago had Nicole and OJ been together?
Since like 1977, she was about 18 years old. So they were off and on for many years. Of
Yeah.
course, they had 2 kids together, Sydney and Justin, and they were about 6 and 8 years old then. And I guess he was just always obsessed with her. And then you heard, and I'm sure you've heard all the 911 calls, and where she had the police to come out there because he's banging on her door. He would show up if she was on dates. So, and this you found out kind of afterwards, like going towards the trial. You didn't really hear much at the beginning, so people didn't naturally think, oh, he must have been the one that killed them. But they had said that he was in Chicago at the time, and so he had to fly back. So people were like, well, he's in Chicago, so it couldn't be him. So no one really would have thought it was him. But when they showed him at the house, at the crime scene, they showed him handcuffed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when people started thinking, gee, maybe they must think he must have had something to do with it, that they're handcuffing now. So people were still talking about that a lot during the week. And I think the funeral was on either Wednesday or Thursday. And then Friday was the big day. That's when the police said that O.J. Simpson is a suspect. We were actively searching for him. And he's a fugitive. And when they said that on the news, everyone was like, oh my God, how can he be a fugitive? Where could he possibly go? Somebody that is so famous. And that's when people thought, well, maybe he did do that if they're looking
Yeah.
for him now. And then of course eventually that's when the car chase came
Yeah.
about, and apparently O.J. was at Bob Kardashian's house, staying there, and then nobody knew it, but he left. The police came and said, "We need you to turn in Mr. Simpson." He's like, and Bob Kardashian, of course, Kim's father,
Robert?
Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know him as Bob, I guess. So, may he rest in peace. So they said, "You need Mr. Kardashian. You need to turn him in," and it's like OJ's gone. So that's when he fled with Al Cowlings in Al Cowlings' white Bronco, and that was the start of the chase. And that was on Friday night.
Okay, so just to make sure all this. So Nicole, everyone found out she was murdered on a Monday.
Yep. Yeah,
Nicole.
because, well, at least on the East Coast, because it's probably 11 o'clock on the West Coast Sunday night. So.
Yeah, and then but he was in Chicago at the time the news came out.
At the time the news came out, yes. So apparently he had flown to Chicago Sunday night around the time of the murders, or maybe after, maybe before. Nobody really knew. They called him at the hotel and broke the news to him. And he said, "Oh my God, I'm coming right back." And when he came back and they were interviewing him at, I guess, her house or his house, they noticed a cut on his hand. And he said, "Oh, when I heard the news that Nicole was killed, I slammed a cup down and I broke this glass." And that's how he got the cut. So that was a little bit suspicious, but he had an excuse for that. So apparently he left Chicago about an hour or so after the crimes had committed. So
Yeah.
then you started looking at timelines. Well, I guess it's possible because I guess he didn't get to Chicago till after that, not before. And
Hmm.
earlier that day, I think it was Sydney, had like a dance recital, and he was there. So
Yeah.
that recital was maybe 7 or 8 o'clock, and then the murders happened at about 10 or 11, and he took a late, midnight flight to
Yeah.
Chicago after that.
Okay, that makes sense. So then he was questioned for it a couple days after,
Yeah.
and then the following Friday they arrested him.
Well, yeah, that's when they were looking for him, and then he was a fugitive, and he was on the loose, and they're like, "We are actively search." I think that was his words. "We were actively searching for Mr. Simpson," and people were like, "Oh my God!" People were glued to the TV,
Hmm.
just absolutely glued to the TV. That this person who's so famous is now accused of murder, and nobody knows where he is.
Yeah.
And then you heard, a couple hours later, they found him. He's on the interstate, and he has a gun to his head,
Mm.
and it was just. I think I was telling you before, watching that unfold on TV, I thought was the most incredible, unbelievable thing that you couldn't even make a movie about that. And I don't think I've seen anything like that. And I hate to compare it to 9/11, but when I watched 9/11, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And on with OJ, I could not believe that this person so famous is driving around with a gun to his head and the whole world is following him. There's helicopters everywhere. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that since then.
Yeah. So where were you in your life when all of this was going down?
Okay, I was in Atlanta, married, of course, and that day I was actually at the Braves game
Okay.
because when I left the Braves game, they were saying we're still searching for him. I was like, okay, well, hope they find him at
On
some
that
point
Friday.
on that Friday. And then somebody behind me, of course, this is before cell phones, was listening to the Braves game on the radio, and and the guy said to me, he said, "Oh, you're not gonna believe this. They found OJ. He's driving around in a car around the freeway, and he's got a gun to his head." I'm like, oh my God. So I was with my friend Jeffrey, and I said, "You know what? We got to go home and watch this." It's just,
Hmm.
we go to a lot of Braves games, and so we went to the parking lot, and before we got to our car, there was a limo there that had a little TV on, and they were watching it.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh my God, we got to get home." So we got home a few minutes later, and just watching it unfold. Maybe it was around 9 o'clock, 9:30, which is 6:30
In LA.
LA West Coast time, and just watching that slow speed car chase and people holding up signs, "Go Juice, go
Yeah.
OJ,"
People holding up signs on TV or
well, they were on the freeway. They were on the overpass because they could see where
Okay.
he was coming. They're
Yeah.
holding up signs. It was just unbelievable. And then we were flipping around the channels, and we had the NBA finals on, and they had the OJ scene on split screen. Half of the screen was OJ, and the
Yeah.
other half was the basketball game. This huge game, the final game. I
Yeah.
mean, everyone was just glued to it. And then he eventually came home. And when he got home, it was getting dark out, so it's kind of hard to see the car. And you could see his son, the older son, from his first marriage, came out and was like going crazy, and the cops were keeping him away from the car. And then, of course, OJ eventually came in. By the time OJ came inside, it was so dark that unfortunately, you really couldn't see it.
Yeah.
But he did come in and ironically had orange juice, which is the truth. And then they arrested him, and he went to jail.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
So how long did the Bronco chase last?
I think maybe 2 or 3 hours. It was literally a slow speed chase, and they just blocked off all the roads. So
Yeah.
it was just the car, and then the cops following behind him. And he was apparently wanted to go see his mother.
Yeah.
That's where he was headed to, and then eventually he headed to his house.
Yeah.
But there were people that said they passed the car and they could see somebody in the back with a gun to their head.
Mm.
So I don't know how true that is, but Al Cowlings, who was a former football player and OJ's best friend, was saying, "I've got OJ in the car. He's got a gun to his head. Please stay back, stay back. I don't want him to kill himself." And you could hear they played some of the recordings to the police officer with Al Cowlings, and it was just unbelievable. It was just like a movie, but something happening in real life.
Yeah. That is crazy. So you watched it at home.
Hmm.
So what happened after that when they took OJ away?
So they took OJ away, and then the next day, I guess he was arraigned in court, and that's when he said, "I'm 100% not guilty. They would not let him out on bail because I think he tried to flee, and it was special circumstances because it was two murders.
Yeah.
So he had to stay in jail, whether he had a lot of money or these great attorneys. And speaking of great attorneys, he set up the Dream Team, which is maybe one of the first times you heard that term, Dream Team, which of course was Bob Kardashian, Robert Shapiro, F. Lee Bailey, a very famous trial attorney, and then Johnny Cochran.
Yeah.
Who was...
And Johnny Cochran was the lead attorney?
Yes. Oh, yeah. He was one lead attorney, and as you'll remember, he says if it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Mm-hmm.
And so he put together this great legal team, and they, I guess, apparently put some doubt in the jury's mind, and of course he was acquitted a year and a half later or so.
Yeah. So when did the trial start? So he was
95. So I want to say sometime in like 95, and then I think the verdict was like in October of 95. So it was like, I think the trial lasted 8 or 9 months.
Okay.
So October of 95 is when he was acquitted, and that scene too. I mean, everyone was on pins and needles, and I think the day before they said, the jury's come to a verdict, but we're not going to announce it until such and such time. So everybody had a chance to be at their TV or be at the courthouse because they want to make sure OJ was there and all of his attorneys were there. And I was watching at the office with my sister, your aunt, and a couple other people on this crappy little TV that hardly came in. It was before internet and everything, so you had to watch it on regular TV. And people were just stopped watching it everywhere.
Yeah.
It was just, it was one of the most famous moments I think that people were watching, and it was an amazing scene.
Yeah. So what was it like in between? Like the Bronco chase was a peak, and then the next peak was like the trial.
Right.
So what was it like in between?
I mean, the trial was interesting. There were a lot of interesting parts. Like there was one of the policemen was Mark Furman, who was a detective, and OJ's team had found some evidence that he might have been a racist, saying the N-word, and so the
detective was a racist.
Detective was possibly a racist, and he was not a good witness at all. That really hurt the prosecution. And I think he put doubt in their mind, thinking that he might have planted the glove. Because remember, there was a missing glove.
Put doubt.
Perhaps, yeah. I think it put some doubt in the jury's mind that, gee, maybe the detective planted the glove and wanted to frame OJ.
Yeah.
Even though you heard stories before that about how all the cops loved OJ, and whenever there was incidents in his house with a woman or something, they always let him go, and they were always on his side. So it was kind of odd to think, gee, now all of a sudden they would frame him.
Yeah.
But you've got a guy who looks like he might have been a racist, and I think that put a doubt in their mind. Even though, to me, there was still so much physical evidence with the blood in his car and the sock that he left.
Yeah. So talk about like the main evidence points.
Okay, so you had the missing glove that they eventually found. People thought he planted it, but they did find it somewhere, and it had OJ's blood on it.
So
I think the other blood,
there was a
too.
glove at the crime scene, but the other glove was missing.
I think, yeah, and I can't remember where they found the other glove. Maybe at OJ's house. And there was also a story about how the limo driver was picking up OJ to take him to the airport to go to Chicago. The limo driver testified that he knocked on the door several times. OJ did not come out. And while he was waiting in the car, he saw a figure of a large man. OJ is a big guy, going into like a back door of the house. He knocks on the door again, and the person says, "Oh, I'm just getting out of the shower." So that kind of looks suspicious. And then there's Cato Kalin. Mm-hmm. Cato Kalin was kind of this crazy guy who was a house guest at OJ's house, lived with him, maybe helped him run errands. And Cato was, I'll never forget, he was on the stand. He goes, "Yeah, I heard this loud noise, like this bang, bang, bang noise. And it sounded like it was OJ coming to the back of the house, sneaking in maybe the back way, supposedly."
Yeah.
So you had a noise, somebody entering the house late, and you had the limo driver seeing a figure appear. And OJ was not answering the door until not long after he saw that figure. And the ironic thing was when the jury said, "Well, we have some questions. We want to see the limo driver. We want to see his testimony again."
Yeah.
I thought, oh, well, that's got to be it, because I thought that was so compelling. But they still acquitted him.
Yeah. So, like, basically they're saying that he snuck into his own house.
Yeah, I guess he wanted to use maybe a back door so nobody would see him. And also about the glove, this is very famous, at the trial, they had him try on the glove.
Mm-hmm. The glove that was found at his house.
And the glove didn't fit.
Yeah.
And what everyone later was like, well, he was trying the glove over a latex glove, And since it was sitting evidence for a while, maybe it swelled up and it didn't fit. And I know I'm comparing it to Seinfeld, but it's very. They did a
Yeah.
takeoff on about the bra. The bra doesn't fit. That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
takeoff on that episode. And there were pictures of him with this glove on when he was doing a newscast because he was also a sports announcer, and it looked like the same gloves. But when they put the glove on, it didn't fit. So
Yeah.
that really hurt, even though it had been a year and he had latex gloves underneath it. So yeah, of course it's not going to fit. But that's when Johnny Cochran said, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
So he had latex gloves under the glove when
That
he
he had to try it
allegedly
on.
did the murder?
No. When they had him try it on.
Okay.
So that made it's like wearing two pair of socks. It makes it a little bit tighter.
Yeah. Okay. Because the glove was really tight on him when he tried it on, but it was a leather glove.
It's leather
and
glove.
Leather can shrink because it was sitting in evidence for like a year.
I guess, or several months, and then you've got the latex gloves. So a lot, could have happened.
Yeah.
What they should have done was tried it on before, or the prosecution, if they knew that was coming, should have tried. I don't know what they could have done, but they should have been more prepared because they were okay with him trying on the glove.
Yeah.
I think the prosecution thought it would help them, I guess.
Yeah.
And they were wrong.
Okay. What other pieces of evidence were there that were big?
Just the well, of course, the previous history. A lot of the domestic violence things came out with Nicole. That he was very jealous. He had followed her around. So then people thought, well, he might have thought Ron Goldman was a boyfriend, so maybe that's why he got so angry and killed them. I mean, those are really the main things. And, the blood in his car. He had some of her blood was in his car, I believe.
Yeah.
It was Bronco. Not a lot, but some. And how did that get there? They weren't actively dating then. Why would the blood be there?
Yeah.
So it looked like there was a lot of evidence, but apparently enough. There was also some doubt that they acquitted him, and I think it just took a few hours. It wasn't very long.
Yeah, for the jury to deliberate.
Yeah, not very long.
Do you know anything about any of the jury members?
I don't. I know they were all interviewed, or a lot of them were interviewed. I'm sure some wrote books, but I don't remember specifically. That would be something good to look back and see what they say. But I remember the Mark Furman thing was definitely something really compelling, that they thought, well, this guy was a racist. He was setting up the investigation.
Yeah.
So I just have, people were saying, I just have some doubts.
Yeah.
That he did it, even though there's blood. And
yeah, it's beyond the shadow of a doubt.
Right. All you have to have is doubt on one person's mind,
Yeah.
But all of them did.
And then it's important to look in the context. So like a couple years before was Rodney King.
3 years, you're right.
Yeah.
3 years before was Rodney King.
And that was LA, right?
That was LA. That was when somebody had a camcorder and captured him being beaten up by many, many cops.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, Rodney King was a black man that was beat up by LAPD for a traffic stop.
Something like that. And I think he was acting up and resisting arrest. But what they did to contain him was over and above. I mean, they were just,
And so that started a lot of like race riots, like similar to what we saw in 2020.
Well, once he was acquitted, that's when, because Rodney King, the cops were acquitted first, and they were huge riots.
Okay.
LA was on fire. It was horrible. And then eventually they were retried. I don't know how they were retried, if they were acquitted. I don't remember. But anyway, then people were happy because those guys ended up going to jail. But yeah, once he was acquitted, that's when the riots started. Not because it happened. Yeah. But it's because he was acquitted.
Okay. So that's what happened. So that was like a few years before. So there was a lot of like racial tensions in the LAPD community.
Yeah, and people were negative to them, and rightfully so, because they were definitely wrong there. I don't know if they did anything wrong in the OJ case, but definitely with the way Rodney King was treated. I mean, that was absolutely wrong. So when the verdict came out, you could see it was a little bit racial, where I think like you would see a group of black people watching the verdict, and they were happy that he was acquitted, and you'd see white people be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Yeah. So, and I think part of it was just they were glad a black person, I guess not say was acquitted, but maybe finally got treated fairly.
Yeah, got like a reasonable trial.
Right. And, because the Rodney King thing was a horrible part of history.
Yeah, definitely. So what else, like, what about like his kids, OJ's kids? Have they said anything in the past?
I think they've always supported him. I think he was a little bit estranged from the younger kids at the end. That's what it said. But when he died, they're all by his side. Mm-hmm. So you didn't hear a lot. They kind of, kept to themselves. Did not see much from them. But I think they supported him. And then of course he, went to jail a few years later.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So what did he go to jail for later?
A few years later, maybe let's see, this is 94, maybe 10 years later, he was in Vegas. I think he was living there, which is where he lived when he died. And he had heard that somebody had some stolen memorabilia of his, like signed footballs or baseballs, whatever it was. And so he and these other guys got together and they had guns and they went to this hotel room to try to get back what he thought was rightfully his. And then they got arrested for armed robbery, even though it was his own stuff. And he got, I think, about 8 or 9 years in prison, which the people were saying that was a lot longer than he normally would have. But maybe the judge gave him that time because people thought he was really guilty on the old thing. And also remember, he was, after the acquittal, he was found guilty in a civil trial. And the Goldman family won $33.5 million. So
Okay, so that was the guy that was murdered with
yeah,
Nicole.
Ron Goldman. They found him liable of that. Now that just means you owe all the money. Doesn't mean you go to jail. But anyway, another jury found him essentially guilty. They found him liable, but you don't go to jail.
So
for
what
that.
was he liable for in this civil case?
For their murder, for taking their life? Even though, and that the verdict is a little bit different there. I don't think it has to be unanimous.
Yeah.
And it was a different type of trial. And I think he had to testify in that one where he didn't in the other one. So it was a little bit different jury makeup, but they found him guilty and he was ordered to pay millions and millions of dollars.
That is crazy that you can still have a civil trial for a murder.
Yep.
If like the criminal trial doesn't.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of times it doesn't work out because, I mean, they're thinking, well, he was acquitted on this one, but not in this case.
Yeah. So the Ronald's family went back and sued him and
That's
then
right.
he had to pay.
33.5
How did he
million.
like still have money?
Well, a lot of his money was tied up in trust. So the Goldman family could not get that money. So he had a pension. I think it was about $300,000 a year. And they could not touch that because it was in a trust. So I think they tried to get his Heisman Trophy and things like that. But I don't think they got a whole lot of money from him.
Because I imagine he must have been like broke after
with attorney's fees. Yeah, I'm sure he spent
the
millions.
Dream Team.
Yeah.
Like how much did they charge him?
I don't know. I'm sure a lot. But it was also great for them because look what it did to Johnny Cochran's career. He started or maybe he had a huge firm, but it got even bigger.
Yeah.
And so,
Robert
but I'm sure
Kardashian, obviously.
Yeah.
Gave us the Kardashians.
Yeah, I mean that I guess helped. Plus they're kind of pretty too, and I think that helps too.
Yeah. So he wasn't completely broke after the criminal trial.
No, again, he had that big pension, so he lived off of that, but definitely not like before when he was making millions doing movies, and he can make millions doing TV commercials and things like that. So obviously things changed. He was not getting that kind of money.
Yeah, because he was like, what? So and this is when I do have a vivid memory of the first time I heard OJ Simpson's name from you when we were in the kitchen at like our old house, and you asked me, do you know what OJ is? Or like, do you know who OJ is? And I was like, of course, orange juice. Love it. It's the best. And then, yeah, I remember hearing you talk about it. So I do have a memory, but that must have been in like 2004 when he went back to jail.
Maybe around that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was out of jail, and like, when did he get out?
Maybe 10 years ago, and then lived in Vegas the whole time since then. I don't think he could live in Florida. For some reason, they would not let him go there because of I don't know. There's a certain place where he could apply to live, and I guess Vegas happily took him, so he's been in Vegas the whole time.
Okay. And then when you heard about his death, what were your thoughts?
Just what we're discussing right now, just remembering all of this and feeling bad for the Goldmans again, and the Brown family too. They're of course, they're all victims. She was a beautiful woman. I feel horrible, what happened to her, and she was a victim. I think the only good thing that came out from her is that I think domestic violence, got a little bit more recognition then, because you had someone who was rich and beautiful and famous, and she couldn't get help sometimes because people don't necessarily believe her because she was with somebody so famous. Yeah. And maybe that helps other women, down the road. That part. I mean, I think it's the only thing good they can get out of it. Yeah,
I'm sure there's probably studies on that too, and like how domestic violence became legitimized,
right,
as a legitimate threat against women. Any other thoughts on OJ?
No, I want to say, of course, how obsessed I was with it, but your mom and I were in Dallas on a layover, and we saw him at the airport. This is about 5 years.
No way.
5 years after the murder. And
that is crazy.
Yeah, it was, let me think, let's see, 95. Yeah, probably about 2000, before the whole Las Vegas thing. And we were just walking, and like we saw everyone just stopping, looking somewhere. I was like, what's everyone doing? And then you saw OJ, and everyone would just stop. It was like parting the Red Sea.
Yeah.
People would just stop and just watch him. He was on a phone, I guess
Mm-hmm.
before the smartphones came out, but a little phone, and it was like, oh my god. It was
Yeah.
just, it's like seeing Taylor Swift or somebody so famous, or in this case, infamous, as we thought,
Yeah.
infamous. And everyone just stopped and stared.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, just an unbelievable sighting.
Were you totally freaking out?
Oh yeah, I couldn't believe it. Oh my God, there's OJ. And again, there's 4 cameras because people would have been taking pictures left and right, but
Yeah.
we just watched him walk, and he was by himself carrying a bag and on the phone.
Yeah. So do you wish that like OJ would have happened in like a cell phone era?
I guess it would be, yeah. I mean, I guess to see all the paparazzi and to see social media and
And like
things
with
like
the
that.
Bronco chase, you could get live updates with
But
like,
you know, we were getting it
yeah.
even on TV back then. You're watching the whole thing. But there's, if you get a chance, you can go back and watch a lot of it.
Yeah.
Maybe not the same as it would be now, but yeah, you saw that whole chase, and you could see close-ups of the car. You couldn't see him because he was laying down in the back. But to watch the people in the overpass with signs, "Go OJ, go!" I mean,
Yeah.
it was crazy. It was something you'd think out of a movie. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah. So what's been your favorite piece of like OJ media, like book, movie, TV show that you've seen?
Well, I saw the God, what was it? Was it True American, the crime
Yeah,
story?
it was the with David Schwimmer.
Yeah, that I liked that one. I thought that was good. And then I don't know if that was the same one that John Travolta was in. Wasn't he? Didn't he play? I think he played Bob Shapiro in one of the movies, and that was good. Just been several. I don't know anything specific, but just several documentaries that I saw too. But I think that movie I thought was pretty good. Although the person I think played him did not look like him. I think they should have done a better job of casting him.
Yeah, I remember watching the David Schwimmer one when I was in high school.
And
But
he played Kardashian, right?
yeah, he did. That was good casting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Bob Kardashian was not as recognizable as OJ.
Yeah.
So you got to, and the guy that played OJ, I might have been Cuba Gooding Jr., but he just,
Oh, really?
and he's so famous anyway, and he's not nearly as big.
Yeah.
But it was good. I thought it was interesting how they did that. And one thing I remember pointing out in the movie, and that was true, that when his attorneys came to his house and said, "Okay, we want the jury to come here, and we want to see
Yeah.
how you lived." And when they came there, they saw the pictures of Nicole and all white people.
Yeah.
His attorney said, "OJ, we've got mostly black jury here. We want to show different pictures." So Johnny Cochran brought in his own pictures because they thought that might sway the jury. Again, another
Johnny Cochran brought in his own pictures.
family pictures.
Was Johnny Cochran black?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
So yeah, they're like,
So like random people that had no relation to OJ Simpson, they brought in those
I
pictures.
guess so. Yeah, that's what I'd heard, and it was also in that movie too. So it's interesting because maybe I guess I don't think, I know it sounds bad. They want to make him more black because he always dated white women. So
Yeah.
maybe people thought that somebody on a black person on the jury may not have liked that. I don't know.
Yeah.
They go to whatever lengths. I guess.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of something like that, but maybe it helped. I don't know.
That is really
But it was interesting. That was in the movie, and it was, and Johnny Cochran. They all said that later. Yeah, we did that. We went to his house, and we said we had to. I think they changed around some furniture. They put in like African art and
Okay.
things like that.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of interesting to see. I'm sure that's done all the time when when people have these cases. Like, well, we don't want the jury to see this or that, but let's let them see this. Then they'll really like. Our client. They'll think he or she possibly couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting. So what's Johnny Cochran doing now?
He died a few years ago.
Oh.
Johnny Cochran died a few years ago of cancer. His daughter, Tiffany Cochran, was in Atlanta, was a TV reporter for a few
Okay.
years here. So, but his firm lives on, Johnny Cochran firm. I think he's been gone about 10 years now.
Sorry to hear.
Yeah. He was a great attorney. I
Yeah.
mean, he took on some huge cases after that. I want to say he represented Michael Jackson in a case too.
Okay.
I think so.
We'll have to confirm.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other OJ thoughts?
That's it. I mean, it's crazy that he passed away because just a few weeks before he sent out a something on Twitter, said everyone's talking about me going to the hospice and I'm dying. I'm fine, but apparently he really was very sick.
So what was he sick from exactly?
Some type of cancer. I can't remember, but I can't remember which kind, but it was cancer.
Yeah. Crazy to hear. It was one of those celebrity deaths that like, I don't know. I wasn't like shocked when I read it, but I was
Yeah.
like, wow.
Yeah, I was a little surprised at the timing because I had seen that. I follow him on Twitter, and I thought, oh, I guess he is okay. And then I heard that. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
So, but apparently his whole family was there with him,
Okay.
and they made people all sign NDAs. You
Yeah.
cannot take pictures of him on the deathbed or
Yeah,
anything like
that's
that, which
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, should we segue to Taylor?
Yeah,
Okay. Let's talk Taylor. Um well, do you have any thoughts overall on the album? I know we obviously listened to
a couple
Thank You,
songs.
Amy.
Yeah. I was interesting about the whole Kim Kardashian thing. I didn't know they still had a feud, but I guess she did a song going after Kim, I guess, in
Yeah.
their history, and how she capitalized Kim, and I thought that was very cute.
Yeah, so I was excited. Okay, I have to be totally honest. My lit Hainers know this, that I've been in a little bit of a Taylor drought lately.
Okay.
Just kind of annoyed by her. And the main catalyst was her behavior at the Grammys. That was kind of annoying. I thought that it was weird
Okay.
that
Remind me
do
what
you
she
remember
did.
this? Okay, so it was at the Grammys. So like back in January, she won one of the first awards of the night, like best. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was just one song, like won an award. And it was the beginning of the night, like the second award. And she went up and announced this album. And like when
Oh.
Taylor announces an album, everyone like knew she was going to do
So it took away
something.
from the whole night and everyone
Yes,
else's.
like I
Yeah.
think it took away from the whole night. Definitely me, because I
Yeah.
spent the entire rest of the award show like on my phone
Right,
looking stuff.
right. And other people were doing that and you weren't paying attention to the other winners. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I thought. And also the announcement itself kind of fell flat because she was announcing it to a room of like her competitors and like
Hmm.
industry peers. And like there were fans there, so people
Yeah.
were cheering. But if she'd announced it when she was going to be in Tokyo for the Eras tour, like 4 days later, she would have been met with that like massive cheering that
Right,
she
right. I
wanted.
get it.
And I just feel like it kind of took away from it. And then at the end, she wins Album of the Year, the last award. And Celine Dion, who hasn't been seen in public for 3 years because she has stiff
I
person
heard about
syndrome.
that. She came out and she kind of like dissed her.
Yes, like Celine like came out. It was such a big deal because after seeing Titanic, which we saw
Right, I
together,
know.
the Celine Dion
I was
musical.
so happy to see Celine Dion because I know she's so sick, and
I
I'm so
know.
glad to see her out there. And she and Taylor just kind of hardly acknowledged her.
Taylor did not even. I was like, when I saw Celine come out, I was like, oh my God, Celine, we haven't seen her in so long. And then when she announced Taylor, I was like, okay, yay, Taylor won. And then I'm like, Taylor better give Celine a big hug, because when Mariah Carey presented Miley Cyrus with an award, Miley took like 10 seconds of her speech to say like round of applause for Mariah Carey, like the icon, the queen. That's like
Yeah,
general, like a good thing to do, is like when someone presents you an award, you thank the presenter or at least like give them a hug.
yeah, right.
So Taylor does her whole like she's shocked, she like
right. I
can't
remember.
believe it, and
Yeah.
then she drags up Lana Del Rey, who just lost the award to her. So drags up her friend Lana and then makes Lana go up, and you can see Lana be like, no, I don't want to come up, because she just lost that category to Taylor.
Yeah.
Taylor pulls her up. Taylor goes on stage, doesn't even make eye contact with Celine, doesn't even hug her, and then doesn't thank her during the speech. And that's when I
Yeah.
was like, wow.
Yeah, I know. I remember seeing that, and she got a lot of backlash on that.
From me. So ever since then, I've been like kind of annoyed, but I will say I do love her and Travis. Like everything, every news item about Taylor and Travis, like I'm genuinely interested in. Like I want them to get married. I'm obsessed. So this album, we got the track list. We thought it was going to be 15 songs. It was supposed to come out, or it did come out Friday, like midnight on April 19th. And the album leaked 2 days before. So leaking is really bad now. Like a lot of songs get leaked. Like Ariana Grande's, a lot of her songs got leaked. So I get sent a link to her songs by someone. And I didn't listen to it because
You wanted to wait till the official.
like I wanted to wait, and I just feel like it's kind of, I don't judge people that do it, because like Taylor's a billionaire. Listening to her songs like a day before, I don't care if other people do it. I was also just like, I was busy. I was going to an open mic. I just like didn't really care that much to listen to it 2 days before.
Mm-hmm.
And then people start talking about the lyrics and they're like, oh my God. Because one of the lines is like, we drank wine and you ate 7 bars of chocolate. We declared Charlie Puth should be a bigger artist. I scratch your head, you fall asleep like a tattooed golden retriever. And people are like, what the heck? Do you know who Charlie Puth is?
Yeah, singer.
Yeah, he's like kind of a weird, nerdy singer. And it just like, people are like pulling out like weird lyrics. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this album? Friday morning, I wake up, check my phone. Turns out, surprise double album. She drops like 15 or 16 more songs. So like that was the surprise. So she knows that people stay up to listen to her album. So people were staying up till to midnight
Yeah.
to when the album comes out. And then at 2 a.m., she drops the other 15 songs. And the first half of the album is 2 hours long. So she does this knowing, like, okay, they're going to be listening to it. They're going to finish the album at 2 a.m. Surprise, I'm going to drop 16 more songs. Isn't that
That is
crazy?
crazy. Yeah. So it's 30 total in
It's
there?
like 31 songs. The runtime is 2 hours long.
Wow.
And the first thing I do, there's this pop culture influencer who I really like named Liz Woods. She posts, she's just like really good at, I'm so lazy when it comes to Taylor Swift now because this girl, she's such a good follow.
She does everything.
She like will find all the TikToks, all the tweets, like anything that's very germane to like Taylor Swift and just kind of gives you the highlights. So she's a great follow. So I check her Instagram in the morning and I see like, oh my God, 15 new songs. And then I see the Thank You, Amy with Kim capitalized. And I beeline to that song. Like I
As
immediately.
soon as you saw the Kim cap, did you figure out what it was?
Liz, the influencer, posted it. And so
Okay.
Liz she's an interesting follow because she was a Kim Kardashian fan first. Like she's an OG Kim Kardashian stan. Like Kim Kardashian follows her on Twitter and like there's a video where like Liz waited outside somewhere to like see Kim Kardashian and Kim like recognized her from social media. Liz got married like a year ago and on her wedding day Kim recorded her like a video message saying like,
Wow.
have a great time on your wedding day. Like, thanks for
Nice.
being such a loyal fan. But listen to this. Liz posted, so on Kim's birthday, Liz posted a picture of Kim and said, like, happy birthday, Kim. I love you so much. And put a Taylor Swift song in this story. And Kim reposted it and didn't realize that a Taylor Swift song was tagged in that. So then it hit like national news being like, oh my God, Kim Kardashian just posted a Taylor Swift song like on her birthday, but it was because she reposted Liz's story. Isn't that kind of crazy?
Yeah.
So this girl, Liz, keeps this like running list of every like thing that Kim and Taylor might have in common. So it's a list of basically celebrities who have interacted with both Liz and Taylor. And the list is called people that could solve Kim versus Taylor. So it's like Sabrina Carpenter because she opened for Taylor Swift, but then she did a Skims ad. So she's on the list.
Okay.
Or like people that kind of
Common denominators, I guess.
yeah, or it's like people that interacted with Taylor Swift, but then interacted with Kris Jenner, like common denominators.
Yeah.
And so like imagine our surprise when Taylor releases a song called Thank You, Amy with KIM capitalized. I was shocked.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the song?
Well, I mean, obviously I don't follow it as much as you do, but I mean, I knew that they had beef some years before, but I'm thinking something like that. Why would Taylor do this now? It seems like it would really help Kim's career more than anything. I mean, Taylor's huge right now, and then now she's bringing Kim back into that. I think that because Kim, I don't hear it as much of now. Maybe that's how she wants it, but I don't know why she would do this. It's kind of seems childish.
I thought
their
so
thing goes
too.
back years ago. I can understand if the stuff about Travis because it's something new in her life, but I don't know. It just again, I don't follow him much as you do, but I was kind of surprised that there was something about Kim on there.
I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen because Taylor has alluded in many songs, she's like very tastefully described and like alluded to vindication and like being the bad guy for a number of years in a story that's untrue. And then the truth comes out a few years later. And I think everyone can kind of relate to this. I know what you and I were talking about the other day with your situation.
Yeah.
With like, not to tease everyone, but
Right.
like explaining that a lot of times in life, like you might have beef with someone or there might be a fight or there might be a story about you that's untrue. And you have to kind of like weather that and get through it yourself. And even though it's hard, but like usually like the darkness always comes to light.
That's right.
And Taylor sings about that in like so many songs that I love. It's one of my favorite themes that Taylor sings about. And I thought she's always done it in such like a beautiful, crafty, like
Right.
lyrically composed way. And then for her to come out with this song, like Thank You, Amy, when she literally says like, fuck you, Amy.
Yeah.
And obviously like Amy means Kim.
Kim. Right. I figured that.
And
then she mentioned the daughter.
And then, like, yeah, mentioning-
You got to leave the kids out.
yeah,
That's just crazy. I know she didn't say anything horrible about the kids, but I don't think you just don't go there.
I thought it was odd too. Like, your kid comes home singing my song. I just don't understand what more Taylor could have wanted out of this
Yeah,
situation
what
because
does she have to gain?
not only is she at like a career peak, she's the most famous person in the world right
Hmm.
now, but also the phone call that like Kim posted in 2016 was proved to be fake a few years ago. Like, Taylor got her, like, she got the proof, she got the evidence. I think like 3 years ago is when like there was official proof that came out that the phone call was doctored and that Taylor was right and that Kanye and Kim duped Taylor. That was a few years
Oh
ago
yeah.
that it came out, because this has to do with, I guess I should have explained this, but obviously, like in 2009, when Kanye took the microphone
I
away when
remember.
Taylor
Oh,
won the
that was a
VMAs.
huge deal. Yeah.
I know. I'm mad I didn't watch that live. I had to learn about it when I
You
came
were
to school the
probably
next
young
day.
then.
I was in
Yeah.
like sixth
12
grade,
years old. Yeah.
but
Oh, I remember that. That was huge. But that was way before social media. But it was still all over the news, and I can still picture her standing there. And she was. So that was 2009. So she was
she's
still pretty young
she
then.
was like 19 or
Yeah. So she
20.
was a young kid, and that was horrible what he did.
So like he did that, which was terrible, but they made up and she presented him with like a lifetime achievement award in 2015 and like gave this nice speech that says like, before I finish, I'm gonna present
Hmm.
Kanye with this award, and like got pictures with Kim and Kanye. And then in 2016, it Taylor or Kanye's song Famous came out, and he said that like he called Taylor and said like, "Hey, I'm writing this song. The lyric is like, I think me and Taylor might still have sex. Why I made that bitch famous." So he says that, which is a mean lyric. And
Yeah.
she comes out and says that he did call me, but he only told me about the first line. And I guess she was okay with him saying that, like, me and Taylor might still have sex, whatever.
Yeah.
But she did not approve of, like,
Of course,
I
it made
made
her
that
famous.
bitch
Yeah.
famous.
Yeah. No, he was. She was
And then Kim comes out summer 2016. This is like somewhere I remember where I was. I was at camp. I was a counselor that summer. And I wasn't even that into pop culture. Like, really, I wasn't
Mhm.
really into what was going on. I definitely didn't care about Taylor then. I definitely didn't care about Kim. But I was still like, what is this? And then Kim comes out with a phone call. And then Taylor goes into hiding for like a year. Then she comes out with Reputation and the Snake video. And then even then, that was like obviously about Kanye, but it was still done in kind of like
Right.
an ambiguous way. And then so it was 2017, and
Yeah.
then like 2020, obviously Folklore, Evermore. Then
But
she
she's at just such a different place in her life now. I mean, she's so.
so different.
If you put, she's way up here. I mean, they were more closer for you on a scale of 1 to 10. Maybe Kim was at 8 and Taylor was at 9 or 10. And now Taylor's in a stratosphere now, and I don't know why she. I think stooped that low. I
I don't
guess.
know why
I
she
think
did
that's the right
either.
term.
And because Kim, the Kardashians are flopping right now. Like back in, I feel like 2022,
Is their
they
show on anymore? Or is
it
it?
is still on.
But it's not as popular.
No, I mean back in 2022 when they were everywhere. Remember like Kim and Pete, like the Kardashians
Of
were
course, yeah.
everywhere. But now like they aren't even that famous anymore. I mean they are obviously, but it's
They're
kind of
not
like
as relevant.
no one really cares what they're doing. I think
Yeah.
there's a rumor that like Kylie Jenner is like bankrupt because
I
she.
thought she was the billionaire
I
with her
think that was
company.
like fake too. I don't know. But the Thank You Amy stuff is all around weird.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't like it. I won't be listening to it. Other songs, the album's too damn long. It is
30
too
songs on an
long.
album. Oh my god.
like it is way too long. It's 31 songs, 2 hours and 2 minutes. There's no reason for it to be this long. I'm like comparing it to Ariana Grande's album that had like 13 tracks, but one was an interlude. It's 35 minutes, but the album's like short and sweet. Um, do you have any songs on Taylor's album that you've liked that stuck out to you?
The new album?
Yeah.
Not really. I've only listened just a couple of times. So.
Okay. I do think that my favorite is Florida, the one with Florence and the Machine. I do like Who's Afraid of Little Ol' Me. And then she has this crazy song called But Daddy, I Love Him. It's so weird. The lyrics in the album, I just feel like are not as strong. Like it's very kind of, it feels like very elementary, kind of like a first draft, just like a little bit too on the nose. I think what
Yeah.
Taylor was great at before was like singing about things like ambiguously or singing about things in a way that's
Hidden meanings? And
like
things
hidden
that.
meanings, and like it could be about multiple different things or multiple different themes. But this one,
Well,
it
gosh,
just
when you
feels...
come out with 35 songs, it's I bet there's a few she's just mailing it in and maybe not spending as much time or I don't know. That's a lot of songs.
And everyone was worried that, or not worried, but everyone thought that this album was going to tear down Joe, her boyfriend that she had for 6 years. But the
Right.
album turned out, people think that it's mostly about Matty Healy. Remember that gross guy that she dated between Travis and Joe?
I remember the name, but yeah, I don't remember what he looks like. I guess
Eh,
if he's gross, maybe he's gross. I don't
People
know.
really hate him, but anyways, I'm going to keep listening to the album,
Okay, I will too.
but I'm not, the jury's still out.
Okay.
Um but yeah, that's the Taylor stuff.
Okay. Well, good. Yeah, I'm gonna listen to some more too. I've got it queued up on in my car.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add on OJ or Taylor?
Not really.
Doesn't have to be related.
I don't think so. No, this was a lot of fun.
Okay.
So would you go to another one of her concerts?
I don't think so. Like there was a point, I mean if someone offered me tickets and for
But
like
you wouldn't go pay $5,000 like some of these
absolutely
people were
not.
doing.
No. I mean, I would like cuz she's coming back to the US and when I went in May for the first Eras tour, I didn't have the best experience. It was not her fault.
Ride your shoes.
Yeah. She put on an amazing show. Like I kind of wanted to do a do-over to go back. Like I was so excited for this show that I put so much pressure on it and then ended up like having a lot of anxiety at the show. So I'd love to go back with just like no pressure and just have fun. But it's not possible. The Eras tour is so crazy.
Yeah, and it's
Like
you can't get a ticket. You got lucky. You got in that lottery and got a ticket for a reasonable price.
yeah, I think like I would go back if I was offered like face value tickets. I would pay like 250, I think is the max I would pay. But at the show, it feels like overwhelming. Like
It's amazing how what a huge event it was, and it was night after night after night. It wasn't like the Super Bowl where it's one time a year. It's like every one of her concerts was a huge event. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. We were talking, yesterday about like Elvis and the Beatles. That she's on that level now.
yeah.
Michael Jackson when he was huge in the '80s or early
Yeah.
'90s. I mean, no one's come close in the last few 20 years that I can remember. It's
Yeah.
just unbelievable. Selling out 50,000 seat stadiums night after night after night.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It is crazy. And then the lawsuits with Ticketmaster that started this.
Yeah. So I guess that's not gonna affect her then, right? Is Ticketmaster's gonna get in trouble or
I
what?
hope so. I mean, concert tickets are so expensive
They are.
now.
Even the face price, but when the resale and then
Yeah.
the fees you pay, I mean, what's like that for sporting events too, but especially the concert ticket prices are just it's crazy.
Yeah, it is really crazy. Um, okay, well, I think that we are
Thank you.
good
This was
here.
a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining, Dad. Okay,
Thanks for having me.
bye.